A killer is stalking the rivers of North America, leaving death and mutilation in its wake. Deformed bodies are all that's left of a species fighting for survival. And if the experts can't identify the culprit, one of the biggest salamanders in the world could well be for extinction. The Natural History Museum, London, my second home as a child. It was here that I fell in love with the diverse and bizarre world of animals that we share the planet with. It's a bottomless well of knowledge, a colossal 70 million specimens and around 300 experts all at my fingertips to help me better understand some of the planet's weird creatures. Our journey starts near Asheville, North Carolina, in the cloud-shrouded mountains of the Appalachians. Deep within the woods of Pisgah Forest is a fast-flowing waterway that's home to the hellbender, the biggest salamander in North America, a creature whose name alone makes you think that it's crawled straight from Hades. And parts of this story will drag us straight back there too. Like every great horror story, I start my adventure in happier times, doing what I love most. But I'm aware of a shadow of a killer that is following me through this green and pleasant land.
Now, the Appalachians are kind of like herpetological heaven for me, because this is pretty much the place on the face of the earth to come for salamanders. There's more species here than pretty much anywhere else on Earth. In fact, in North America alone, there's over 112 different species of newt and salamander. An awful lot of them live in this area, and that's because they've got very thin skin. And when you've got thin skin, it means you lose moisture very easily. So what place could be better? We're in the low clouds here, everything is sort of dripping, and there are loads of streams just like this. Look at that. That's giant. That is the biggest crowfly I've ever seen. These guys lay their eggs in the moss and the vegetation around a stream like this. And in fact, the grubs, the leather jackets as we like to call them, are perfect food for many of the animals we're here to find. So, not a bad catch before I've even got going. Now, what I'm guessing is because there's so many different forms of salamander here, they're going to be very niche specific, which means they're going to be found in their own sorts of environments. So I'm just going to work my way thoroughly through as many environments as I possibly can, just see how many different kinds I can turn up. Now, at home, we try to think of newts and things like that. They're the only salamanders we have as being pond-living animals, but I often get calls from people who say they found a strange lizard in their garden. And a strange lizard in the garden is often a newt that's come out of the water. Our newts only breed in the pond, and this guy is no exception. I don't know what he is. I think he's a dusky salamander. I'll check it all out in a book when I get back to the car. But oh, there's another one. I reckon that's a dusky as well, you know. Oh. Got another one. Now, what I can tell you about these guys is they've got a pretty spectacular tongue. You kind of think of frogs and toads as being able to sort of flick their tongue out, their sticky tongue, capture insects and bring it back into their mouth. Now, while they can't actually fling it a long way like some of the frogs, this guy can actually flip it a good centimetre or so in front of his nose, which, bearing in mind his head's about a centimetre long, is pretty spectacular. Oh, he's going down his hole. Oh. This is easy. There's salamanders everywhere you look. There's a little stripe below the eye there. I reckon that's going to help me identify it. I don't know. What do I know? I'm learning as I go. I bet you if I asked various experts, they'd say, oh, I don't know about that. You know, this is the thing. It's all this stuff is perfect for an insect-eating amphibian. There's another one up here somewhere. There's another one. I saw another one scamper up under the moss here. I think it's the same species again.
Now, what I'm finding may be small, but these tiny salamanders are capable of impressive physical feats.
I don't really want to go down there, do I? Now, this one's lost his tail at some point. That tip of the tail there is regenerating. And this is something salamanders are very good at generally. They can regrow toes and basically bits of their body can be regenerated. It's a real superpower of these animals.
As my quest unfolds, the salamander's ability to regenerate limbs could be more vital to the hellbender's survival than you might imagine. Back at the Natural History Museum, Barry Clark shows us how varied salamanders can be.
The 5 salamanders in front of me here are the giant salamander, which comes from China and Japan. There's 2 species. As the name suggests, they're very big. They grow up to about 5 feet or 1.5 meters. The sirens retain gills and the front limbs, but lose the hind limbs. The axolotls are found in Mexico. They stay in the juvenile body form and they have gills and all 4 legs. The Amphiuma is yet another kind of salamander, and it has front and hind limbs, but it doesn't have gills. This is a hellbender, and that's our target animal. It's one of the tailed amphibians. They grow to about 2 feet or 75 centimetres.
This is a world pulsating with life both on land and in the rivers, where human impact is at a minimum and where Mother Nature is running rampant. This really is the wild woods, home to all manner of America's finest animals and plants. And the oxygenated rivers that run through it are hellbender heaven. But be prepared for some graphic images as our journey plunges us into hellbender hell. High in the Appalachian Mountains in North Carolina, deep in a freezing river, lives the hellbender, one of the biggest and weirdest salamanders in the world. A creature with a name so terrifying that just the mere prospect of being in the water with one would make most people rather apprehensive.
You can get kind of nerdy about salamanders, and a lot of salamanders are called this kind of salamander or this kind of salamander, and they're all a little bit kind of obvious names for species, you know, red-spotted and stripes and all the rest of it. And it seems kind of appropriate we're going looking for hellbenders with a weapon like this.
Armed with my rock lever, I feel like a character out of a Hammer House of Horror movie, out to slay a mythical beast. Now, no one's totally sure where the name hellbender comes from, but locally it's believed to be poisonous and to devour good fishing. How much of this is true? Well, I'm about to find out. I'll be spending most of today in fast-flowing, freezing water. And joining me for this bracing dip will be Jeff Humphreys, an amphibian biologist who is a leading authority on hellbenders here in the Appalachians.
Hellbender, devil dog, snot otter, Allegheny alligator, all very, very cool emotional names for an amphibian. You don't often get amphibians with names like that, and I think you're going to find out why. Right. Are you looking to catch all size categories of hellbender today?
We'll probably catch mainly adults just because the larvae are really secretive and
Okay.
they generally hide down in the gravel.
It's when you do that, you see, this is a gesture not usually used in the newting world back home. Usually if you say, oh, I caught a really big newt, it would be like that big. So to say that is that's kind of good, that's exciting.
And with that, we go underwater into hellbender habitat. This giant salamander can live for at least 30 years, and if we find a big adult today, its presence here is an indication of healthy, clean water. They are totally aquatic, living in fast-flowing rivers, using large rocks to protect them from potential predators, such as snakes, turtles and fish. Also, these rocks prevent them from being swept downriver. I'm not as well adapted for these conditions as the hellbender, and it's taken all my energy not to be washed away by this deceptively strong current.
You can use the rock flipper. You guys need to get both of your hands under there. If you feel something big and squishy, grab it. Hold on. Ready?
Big and squishy or not, I dive to blindly feel for my first hellbender.
There has to be a hellbender under that.
Jeff's field assistant, Gabriella, makes an unexpected find.
Well, Gabriella's just found a young one, a larva, yeah?
Yeah, a larva,
Okay, that's cool.
which is really, really rare. Almost nobody has seen larval hellbenders.
Really? Just Trust me, we're going to find a big one, but this is actually quite cool. This is a good, very important part of the story.
Yeah, this is actually probably the most important thing we could find today. I know you want to find the 2-footers, but conservation-wise, that's pretty awesome.
Look at that.
It looked bigger underwater.
That, to me, is probably one that's less than a year old. That probably hatched this past fall. Pretty amazing.
Oh, that's great.
That's definitely the smallest one I've ever seen.
Really?
Yeah.
How pleased are you?
Yeah, that's
How
nice.
pleased are you? That is such a cool little find.
Yeah, so tell me how that thing survives to adulthood. How does it not get eaten by all those?
I know.
Did you see all the rock
Yeah,
bass
there
and
was
things
we had trout, and that's fish food. That is there.
You could have a population that's on its way out.
Yeah.
You can still catch hellbenders there, but you might not find any larvae, and that's a big
So
indication.
this is the best sign we
it's
could possibly have had.
really good indication that this stream is still in healthy condition.
Just gotta find his mum and dad now.
Here I am, a total novice at hellbender hunting, and I witness a find that Jeff has worked years for in this freezing water. It's great news for the future of the Appalachian hellbender. But elsewhere in the country, things aren't looking so good. But more of that later. Pisgah National Park provides the best possible conditions for the hellbender. High in the mountains, far away from human settlements and pollution, the water is clear and healthy. We found plenty of hellbender food here and evidence that other salamanders are successfully breeding. Here's a 2-line salamander, and I found the eggs under a rock. But what about this? A brown trout. It's small and apparently innocuous, but maybe it's a bigger threat to the hellbender than it initially appears. It's been an exhausting day in the river. One table-sized rock, though, is raised to reveal today's ultimate prize, an adult hellbender.
All right. Oh. That has got to be one of the most beautifully ugly creatures I think I've ever set my eyes on. That is an amazing animal. Producing loads of real gooey slime. Now this slime, is it a defensive slime?
Yeah, it is slightly toxic. Maybe
Yeah.
it's probably distasteful. And actually, there's some papers written where somebody's actually tasted these things and
Really?
it doesn't taste very good. It's pretty bitter.
You can see why people give them such bad press. People think they are biters, that they're poisonous and they're bad.